Welcome to the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, here's your host, Matthew Ablin.
Hello, and welcome to episode 51 of the Queen City Music Podcast. This episode of the Queen City Music Podcast is sponsored by Middle Sea Jazz, Charlotte's premier jazz club located at 300 South Brevard Street in Uptown Charlotte. Stop in for Thursday night jazz jams, gospel Sundays every third Sunday of the month, or bi-weekly Wednesdays for Remember Wednesdays. But if you prefer, stay in for the evening and watch their Saturday night live stream, where you'll have access to the best performances Middle Sea Jazz has to offer. And if you want the VIP treatment, get a Baby Grand membership, where life takes you to a higher note. Tickets are now available for A Night with Kirk Whalum on December 10th and 11th. The Heart and Soul Christmas Show featuring Nils and Johnny Britt on December 17th and 18th. And let's not forget, Jazz and Soul Music presents A Charlie Brown Christmas featuring the Sean Mason Trio and Tyra Scott on December 22nd and 23rd. I also wanted to give a reminder that my new recording, You and Me, is now available on all streaming platforms, and it features some amazing local Charlotte musicians. If you'd like to find out more about me and all the things that I am up to, head over to my website at www.matthewablin.com. There's always a link in the show notes to make it easy for you. This month, on the 51st episode of the Queen City Music Podcast, I'm speaking with the Wormholes. This group's music has been described as a blend of art pop and psychedelic rock. The band's sound is the creation of Ben Verner and Chris Walters, who have been together since 2015, and the duo have recently released their second full-length recording, entitled Light in the Dark. Chris and Ben from the Wormholes, thank you for coming on the Queen City Music Podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So let's get the party started, guys. Are you originally from the Charlotte area? Chris?
I'm not. I moved here in 2010 after college.
Okay.
So I've been here since then. But I'm North Carolina, born and raised, so
yeah.
Raleigh area is my original origin.
Oh, okay. Ben, how about you?
I'm born and raised in Charlotte. Yep.
That's a rare thing these days.
Yeah, it is.
You don't meet that many folks. All right, so about your music backgrounds, can you fill us in?
Yeah, sure.
You want to start?
Yeah,
Ben?
go ahead, Ben.
I like to think I've been a musician my whole life, but really started trying to make a band during college.
Right.
Weirdly enough, we both went to Western Carolina University, and that's where we both met for the first time. Didn't really become friends until long after that.
Were you doing music in college?
Studying music? No, I was studying fine art,
okay.
Painting and stuff, getting the foundation, art courses there. We both had our own little college bands up there and met through that.
Right. And
then eventually I moved to Charlotte and came up with the Wormholes moniker and started taking it much more seriously.
So what's your music background as far as playing? Are you singing? Are you playing guitar?
Singing, playing guitar, playing pretty much any instrument I can get my hands on. When I was forming the band, I was playing every instrument all the time. Drums, bass, synthesizer.
When did you get into
guitar.
Playing? Was that before college?
Yeah. Back in middle school, high school, playing with my dad's guitars and listening to hardcore bands. And
oh, so that's bad. You really listening to like hardcore stuff?
I got into that in like high school. Yeah.
Awesome.
But, I was raised as a kid on the Beatles and the Grateful Dead and Led Zeppelin and all the great classics.
So your dad gave you a good schooling.
Yeah, he gave me a good schooling, and then he let me, listen to whatever I wanted to, however good or bad it was.
Sweet. All right. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I've been playing music my whole life. I come from a pretty musical family. Most of my grandfather and my father were musicians. Grew up playing in church primarily. That's kind of like where that all started. But I was playing violin at 5, piano lessons all through elementary school.
Wow.
And then I was 12. It was orchestra class in school. And I had been playing the violin, and Mr. Knight, my orchestra teacher, was like, "What do you think about trying the string bass?" And I was just this little skinny kid, and I was like, "Let's try it." I had to step on a stool to hold it up.
That's great.
But he would teach me how to play that thing, and that was like, oh, this is awesome. And so then for my 13th birthday, my parents got me a Squier bass pack. Came with the little amp and the Squier and the bass. And then my best friend got the guitar pack as well. So we started our band when we were 13. And we were playing like Blink-182 songs, and
that was probably the age I got my Squier pack.
And so then I just kind of stayed on bass, but I was in all the bands in high school. I was in concert band where I played euphonium, marching band. I marched baritone and sousaphone. I was in winter drumline. Wow. I played string bass and electric bass in the jazz band, all the way up till college. And then I actually briefly, when I went to Western, I initially started as a music major for performance on bass.
Okay.
And once music became like this academic requirement, it kind of soured it for me. And so I didn't want to do music as an academic pursuit. I just wanted to keep it as my thing that I really love to pursue. I didn't want it to be like a responsibility, I guess.
Yes, no, I get you.
Which, I mean, in hindsight was probably just, a dumb college kid not taking it seriously enough. But hey, we're here now. I'm still doing it, so whatever.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You know what? I went to school and I studied music and I studied classical guitar, but that's the thing. You don't always need a formal education in music. Like if you are interested in a certain field of study in music, if you're interested in classical music, probably going to school is probably the thing you probably want to do.
Sure.
But if you are not interested in that narrow field, it's probably not something you want to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're not going to school to study Black Sabbath or, Led Zeppelin stuff. I mean, it's just it's not what's done. Although they have popular music studies, but do you really need to go to school to do that? You can listen to the bands and read stuff online about them. For sure. Days, so, but that's really interesting that you guys mentioned about the age that you really just started getting into music, because the more I do the podcast and I talk to people about it, it seems, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe some psychology major will tell me one day. Around 12 or 13 is like that magic moment that lights for a lot of folks who get into music. I mean, there are the rare people who get in when they're really young and are hooked. But 11, 12, 13, that seems to be that age. I don't know if it's...
You got that teenage angst. And you feel like you got something to say, and, you got that guitar in your hand. You want to make some noise.
Yeah, and it speaks to you. I don't know if it's the generation thing.
For me, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a common experience, but before that age, you're kind of shaped by whatever music is provided to you from maybe your parents, or so like your environment is kind of shaped in what you're listening to and just what you're exposed to. But I know like around 11, 12, 13, I really found my own identity in what I liked, not what I just listened to my parents play. Right. Yeah. I grew up on Steely Dan and Chicago and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles as well. That's all my parents' music, and it's great stuff. But then, like, come, in the middle school age area, all of a sudden I find, like, Deftones and Modest Mouse and these bands that I loved for whatever reason. I resonated with them. My parents had no idea who they were. And then me and my friends have this new shared kind of reality of our music, and that's where that kind of blossomed. And so I think just finding, like, your own personal taste for whatever reason, it kind of came to be at that age.
Yeah. So if we fast forward a few years, we were talking before the podcast, and Ben was filling me in on how the Wormholes started. But it actually started a little bit before. You were saying about 2012 you were doing a rock band.
Yeah, I kind of formed a band and started writing songs with this kind of early concept. And I did coin the name back then. But it's evolved so much since then that it's a new band now.
So how did you two guys meet up? You went to the same school, but did you take classes together? Did you meet up through friends at a party one night talking about music, or how did that happen?
So we shared the stage at Western Carolina on, at parties and stuff, in different bands.
Okay.
And we met, but we never friends in college. But we both moved to Charlotte, and then he quickly met some of my friends. And so then he just entered the circle of people I was around all the time.
Yeah.
And we became friends.
Yeah.
And then we became super close once we were actually bandmates.
Okay.
Obviously.
So at what point did you guys start talking about doing similar music?
We shared a couple bills in the early days of us both performing our own projects here in Charlotte. Back like when the Rue was open. That was such a great place that kind of it was a hive for all these young artists that were getting their first opportunities, you know. And we played there all the time.
Yeah, I actually saw quite a few Wormhole shows there just as a friend and a fan.
Okay.
And then also I had my own projects that I was playing with, various projects over the years, and we would share certain bills, but it wasn't until about 2015 that we started playing together, and then that's kind of where this formation of this project kind of took shape. And
so around 2015, when you guys started doing stuff in 2015, did you get together with the idea that it was going to be original music? Or
yeah. It's always been original
it's
music.
Always 100% of the time. I mean, really, as far as covering other bands' music, it does not happen much. From the start of this band to now, it really is super rare.
Yeah, it has to be like either something we're really inspired to want to take on, or just feeling like maybe we're playing a show that needs some familiarity and we'll work it in, but it's not covers are never a priority, really.
Okay. So what's the makeup of the band? How do you guys, who plays what instruments, and so if we go see you live, what can we expect?
So live, I'm playing guitars and Moog Sub 37 synthesizer, and I'm singing lead vocals. Chris is playing a synthesizer.
I play drums, you can sing, and then there's a Ableton rig that I've built back behind me. It's just a synth rig, some pedals, and then Ableton kind of runs the show for us because we're a two-piece. So a lot of our live performance it's a lot of sound for two people, but it's kind of building textures and some loops and things that we're doing live to kind of take what we accomplish in the studio and perform it, but perform it as a duo.
I do a duo on the side too, an acoustic duo, but it's not like you guys. We just do covers. And I know how much work goes into it. I'm singing and playing guitar. My buddy's singing and playing drums. I can't imagine adding that other layer, doing electronic stuff in there. I mean, how busy are you guys on stage?
It's fun. I mean, it's interesting because we, at least up until this point, other than like some really huge artists that we admire, we don't run into people trying to do it really too much.
Not like us. They have to be insane.
I mean, a duo is a lot of work. And given the amount of what your music sounds like, it's I can't even imagine.
It's interesting. I mean, it's evolved from, like we used to be able to just kind of, quote, jam and come up with some music that way. Now it's like so much more heady and like, we have to really, it's so conceptual. And when we're in the studio, like as opposed to when you see us on stage, the way we perform the songs is one thing, but when we write them, we don't really credit it on the albums or anything, but like, you don't know if you're hearing his bass line, my bass line, his guitar line, my guitar line, his drum beat, my drum beat. Like there's so little ego involved in our writing, and we appreciate each other's artistic choices so much that it's such a bouncing back and forth process.
Right.
It's so fun to write in the studio because whatever comes up, we just let it come up.
Yeah, it is a collaborative effort in every sense of the word. It's kind of perplexing too. Like I think I've said before, like I've been asked this by friends and stuff, and it's like it's really having two sides to one brain.
Right. And
like we're really lucky. And this isn't even something we really talk about, but I mean it's kind of an anomaly, but we really don't have much friction at all in the writing and creative space. And if there is friction, it is because there are two ideas colliding that are both good ideas, and something just has to win.
Right.
And rarely, I mean, feelings just don't get hurt, and like it's just not. I don't know.
We try them both.
It's
we
like
try both ideas, and whichever one's better.
There's just like a language.
You got to just let it's like the music. Not one of us is going to decide which one's better.
Exactly.
It's what you're hearing is going to decide it.
And that is nice. I mean, in my situation, and again, it's similar because I have only one other person that I bounce an idea off of when we're doing an arrangement for a song. And it makes it easier when you're playing in a duo, you don't have a third person or fourth person saying, well, I've got this idea and I've got that idea.
That's a good point, yeah.
Two people, it's like...
That is the sweet spot.
Can we find that?
Yeah.
That's easy. Let's find that collaborative middle ground where we both can agree this is going to work better here or that's going to work better. But you start throwing other personalities in, man, it can get complicated.
It makes you really appreciate some of those huge bands that have each individual, it's like 4 people. Yeah. The one that comes off top of my head is, I mean, the Beatles are pretty good, but a more current one is the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, it doesn't seem like, and I will say, like, past however many years they had a different guitarist. Yeah. And he was contributing, his stuff, but like, it seems like they really had those 4 core members,
stick around.
Like,
the guitar players have been
contributing so much.
In a sense. They've had several different guitar players.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think of like Metallica, right? So you guys are 2 guys. It's easy to come together. But then you have Metallica. You have Lars and James Hetfield who are calling the shots. And they for years they'd be like, we tell this guy what to play on his solos. We tell the bass player how they do that. And it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they had that friction. But you always had. It always seems like when in a larger band, there's always got to be at least one person who kind of runs stuff.
Yeah.
But in a duo, I think it's truly a collaborative effort.
Definitely. And it helps that we're both multi-instrumentalists. So like when we are writing or recording, I mean, at any point, somebody can come up with something and we can cover it in a variety of instruments. And aside maybe from drums being the only one where, like, if it's a complicated beat, I'll probably have to put it down.
Right.
And then if it were guitar, I guess would be the other. Guitar and drums, like, I guess that's our main performance instruments are guitar and drums. So there's stuff on drums that I can do that he can't. There's stuff on guitar that he does that I can't. But everything else in between is we get both of our hands on it. So that helps being able to conceptualize and write and kick ideas back and forth because there's no limitations as far as instrumentation when we are trying to come up with these ideas. And we use so many synths and drum processors and effects loops and all this stuff that being able to, both of us to be able to have that artillery is definitely a helpful trait.
So you guys get together about 2015, and by 2017 you have a 2-song EP come out, Stardust Mindship. And I'm listening to that, and it's kind of strange because I don't think the way you guys do. So did you guys have a concept for the approach that you were taking? Because there is that electronic aspect to your music. Is that something that you already had talked about before you started writing? Or did this all just kind of come out naturally?
I think it just kind of happened.
It was talked about that we were pursuing an amalgamation of rock instrumentation and sound and electronic music. And we were going to just see what we can do with that. We appreciate both of those genres, including every little subgenre, like from hip hop to alternative rock and pop music, We knew we were going to be an amalgamation of that. And so now the Mindship Stardust EP was kind of the first attempt and just the first thing that, the result of us just seeing what happens when we kind of mix up the instrumentation and the performance of these genres.
So you got 2 songs on there. Are those both collaborative efforts, or did you guys come up with different separate ideas and it's almost like this is Ben's song and this is Chris's song?
Actually, that's funny you say that because Stardust is Ben's song and Mindship is my song as far as the initial
demos
and like the writing and chord progressions and the structure and all that. But then once we kind of got into making them, I got my hands on Stardust, he got his hands on Mindship, and we kind of arranged and then fully formed them together. But just from purely like conceptually, they actually did come individually from us separately, which is not always the case.
And that's cool to think. Sorry, that's cool to think about because like it's funny. I've never really put this together until now, but it's funny that EP is kind of the beginning of this whole thing, and it's like it's 2 examples of 2 ways that we write music, still, and on the new album even.
It's true.
Like he'll write some piece that maybe isn't complete. It's not a song, but it's definitely there's a lot there.
Yeah.
and he'll send it to me, and he has no idea like how we have similar tastes in music, but once he passes that thing to me,
right,
it can then be twisted into something that
you're like, holy shit.
There's he'll come up with a melody.
I'll immediately hear it and hear a melody, and
that I never would have thought of.
And then he hears the melody and he's like, whoa, and then and then it bounces back and it goes back to him and he does something
else. His new melody now influences some chord structures that I want to change, and
or my melody that I hear influences like a new, I'm like, oh, I hear what you did in this verse piece here. Like, let's do that again later on. And
the arrangement.
It really gets arranged and turns into a song.
So when you guys are writing and doing that, what's the process? And I know when I say that, I mean this. Do you like email him over stuff? And then Ben has time to digest it and play around with it on his own time, or are you guys getting together as a duo and then saying, "Hey, let's jam this out"? How does it work?
It's always different. It's a little bit of everything. I would say more recently. I mean, I guess we could use the most recent album as an example, where a lot of that album came from one particular performance that we did. Artist in town, Arthur Brothers, who we collaborate with, and has actually done the album art for that album, Light in the Dark. He had a gallery opening at C3 Labs in 2019, and it was called the Out of Body Experience, and he had us perform just, in the space. And so we kind of came up with a set collaboratively, just like some existing songs and then some in-betweeners of just these loose kind of chord structures that we did actually jam out and kind of build together for a set, which is
we were just trying to make an art gallery vibe
an experience
for this out-of-body. He asked us to play because he knew that our
sound would fit.
Sound and purpose is perfectly aligned with his.
Like the artistic vision, at least.
The concepts within his art are similar within ours. And it's paintings versus music, and it's really cool. And just the serendipity of that, we could talk for hours about. From what's happened from then to now, the album, everything, it's all like twisted into perfect serendipity.
Yeah. Well, that came out of us trying to build like kind of a continuous set. So because of that approach, when fast forward to 2020, the world changes, plans change, we're in the studio again. We decide to pull from those sessions and find kind of these pieces that may have been like, oh, maybe there's something to this. And there was, and it ended up being the makings of this conceptual album, which is meant to be an entire back-to-back listening experience. Much like that set was. So it's kind of funny. So this album in particular came from a very unique place, where no piece of music in the past came because we had performed first. It's usually the other way around. So that was just kind of a cool note, but the process can change, back to your original question, where there's a lot of times I'll come up with these I'll just write, a couple arrangements in just fully in a digital, like there'll be a digital beat, digital synths, all software synths, just kind of a electronic composition, if you will. And I'll kick it over to him and he'll listen to it and then kick it back, and we, back and forth, and that becomes a song. Or there's times where he'll come with a fully fleshed idea. He's like got, a bass line and some guitar lines and lyrics and everything are first. And then we kind of fill in the rest with the arrangement or the beats. And then, every once in a while we're just kind of in the studio working on something kind of pops up. We throw stuff at it immediately and it becomes something. So it is really, there's really no rhyme or reason to the process. It just kind of happens how it happens.
So you guys have the EP come out in 2017, and then the following year in 2018, you have Cosmic Propaganda come out. That's your first full length album. How many songs are on that?
It's 8.
8. So what's the difference, or is there a difference in the approach from the EP to the full length album?
Yeah,
because the sound is, if you listen to the first EP, as I was talking to you earlier, and I listened to the newest album, it sounds like there's this journey, this arc. You guys started and it's like, hey, this is where we're going. And then it sounds by this album, I have no idea what you got coming up next, but it sounds like that arc is like, oh, we found our sound in this in the newest album. But what happened in the middle album? How did that differ from what's happening currently? And then what happened before? How does that fit in the middle?
Yeah. Cosmic Propaganda was definitely our transitional stage for more in the production world, I think, was when we were really finding our sound there. From a songwriting standpoint, it was a little bit more conceptual. Our first EP was just 2 songs. We threw them together. They basically could have existed as singles, but we paired them up and did it as an EP. Cosmic Propaganda, while did have a collection of songs that were kind of put together, we did try to kind of thread some sort of sound together that kind of united it as an album. Not quite as much conceptually as our newest album, Light in the Dark, which really is, in fact, a concept album front to back. Cosmic Propaganda had a thematic through line, but as far as the songs, some songs were just kind of, they needed to be on the album and they didn't necessarily fit in a specific part, or didn't have a connector or anything, but they were just on the album. So production wise, we were still trying to find like our experimental approach to producing and recording, because we self-produce and self-release all of our stuff in our own home studio. So Cosmic Propaganda was us maybe having a little bit more knowledge of what we want, what we're trying to accomplish, but not necessarily the strongest skills or toolkit in the production side of things to fully manifest what was kind of coming out in our heads and the way we kind of wanted to sound. And Light in the Dark, I think, is a better representation of those 2 factors meeting, like us having a sound in our head, but us also being able to accomplish it in our production.
Okay. What was going on between the 3 years of Cosmic Propaganda and Light in the Dark? So, because you had the EP, and it not only took you a year to write the second album, Cosmic Propaganda, but then you have a 3-year difference between Cosmic Propaganda and Light in the Dark. Were you just experimenting, learning about the studio, getting everything together for the group and building?
Touring was 2019.
Well, the big thing, I will say, Chris and I were writing most of the music, and we had a good friend and original of one of the founding members of the Wormholes, Chris. He played bass. He started playing bass guitar, and then he moved on to playing the Moog that we got. So it was pretty much right after the release of Cosmic Propaganda.
Yeah, Cosmic Propaganda was 2018 summer, and then you're talking about end of 2018 when this happened.
2018, yes. He decided to split ways.
All good vibes.
Yeah, good vibes for both parties. But that meant that Chris and I had to figure out a new approach to everything.
Do we find a new member? Do we figure out how to do this as a duo? What do we
between the EP and on Cosmic Propaganda, there were 3 members of the band.
There were 3 members of the band.
Okay.
Out in Cosmic Propaganda, we recorded and produced that as a 3-piece. Now, like he said, Ben and I write 100% of the material. Yeah. And Chris would fill in and play the parts for performance, and then offer like insight, and he was but as far as a conceptual songwriting side, it still was just we were the workhorses on that. But when he left and we decided we were going to keep pursuing this project, 2019 kicks off and we shift focus. Instead of writing and producing material, we figure out how can we perform our existing catalog as a duo. And that meant leaning hard on Ableton, building out an electronic rig that we could kind of produce all the sounds we want to produce in a live environment, but really only manned by him and I. And so that meant like a lot of programming, a lot of MIDI syncing, and a lot of learning, and a lot of deep dives on YouTube of trying to figure out how to use our software and hardware to our advantageous use. So 2019 kicks around, we're now a duo, and we figure out how to play it. So we book shows, and 2019 up until this year was the most we'd traveled, and we did a Southeast tour couple legs of Southeast tours throughout the year and hit a lot of the area and down to Florida and back, and really kind of grew as a touring band in a way we hadn't before. And then, of course, 2020, we plan to do the same thing except more extensively. And we had a single in the bag that we had kind of tracked and recorded, which is Temporary Vessel. So we knew we were going to put a single out, and then we were going to go tour, and then we were going to put a single out, and then we were going to go tour. And 2020 changed for everybody.
Yeah.
So right up on the heels, we're about to go on tour in April, and then March happens, and it becomes clear that those tours aren't going to happen. So we shift to the studio, and that's where we make Light in the Dark. So that 3-year break wasn't really a break. It was just, priorities had to shift.
Yeah, it was when you think about like the times where artists are in their studios working, any type of artist, all the time that you don't think about or see, you just see the painting on the wall or you just hear the song. That's what those 3 years were, is us grinding and like, how are we going to do this? Yeah. Like we did the little tours, and then we were like, okay, like this is going to work, but it's not working.
Right.
So what do we need to do to make it work? And then it's kind of, if you look back, it's almost a good thing that we had this extra year to not only write this album, but write the album in a way where we're still thinking like, okay, we have this tour experience, knowing what we need to do to change it to feel better about our set.
Right.
So now we've had the time to kind of really fully develop our sound and what we are as a 2-piece. It's no longer a work in progress. We are a 2-piece.
Yes.
And we're finally satisfied with what we're putting out as a 2-piece, especially in our live performance, because that's been the trickiest thing, to make it still feel like
a full band.
Like feel like a full band and feel like we're putting the energy in, how do you, I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say, but
I think there's a period of time that it takes. And I think, I don't know again, but who knows what's going to happen with you guys in the future, but that arc, it sounds like you guys have literally had that vision on the first EP. And then by the time Light in the Dark is here, man, it sounds like you've realized what you've got, a full vision of that sound has come true.
Yeah.
And as far as a live show, I think that is a matter of just getting out and doing it. The more you do it, the better you get at it. 100%. And after a while, you guys are going to be like, oh, we got this down to a science. We know how this is going to work and how this is going to work, and doing it all. I think it's just time in. You know what I mean?
For sure.
To get comfortable on stage doing your roles.
And just life experience.
Yeah.
It took that time to be what it is now.
Yeah. Speaking of Light in the Dark, can we listen to one of the tracks you guys sent over, Tsunami?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
This is Tsunami by the Wormholes.
It's a cover-up, you preserve your feeling into tiny white pills, cheap black smiling faces. I just wanna be everything you need. Pull me out to sea and show me it'll be
Guys, such an awesome track. I'm actually really digging this album a lot. Can you guys fill me in about Tsunami? What's the tune about? Because you said that Light in the Dark is a whole concept album from start to finish. So what is the concept? How does Tsunami fit into that concept?
So So Light in the Dark, it's a pretty obvious title, I think. You know, it was written in a time where darkness was all around us. You know, the pandemic had just given everyone a wake-up call, and it looked different for everybody, but it looked like something for everybody. We were both experiencing darkness, and the more the album came together, we realized that we were not only experiencing darkness, but going through the process of trying to find the light. And it just became, it wasn't even really like we tried to write the album about this.
Right.
It was just that
That's what came out?
Yeah, all this music was happening. And like you said, we had some of these songs, you know, we started building these little pieces before we even knew it was an album. And then we were kind of like, oh, this is an album. Right. And, you know, so then little newer songs like Tsunami was one of the ones that kind of got added later in when we were like, oh, this is part of the album.
Yeah, and thematically, the album, you know, from front to back has a conceptual feel, but also is meant to be listened as one full experience, as if you are listening to the introspective voice in your head. Like, it's a very, very, like, definitely an introspective album, and it's almost as if the narrative themes on the album are the emotional swings and peaks and valleys of the human experience internally, and the relationship that has with the external world. So it really is, like, you know, focused on self-awareness and mindfulness and dealing with maybe suffering or tragedy in a way that kind of highlights a recognition of what it's like to live, a conscious life, and how to kind of deal with your own maybe, you know, neurosis or anxiety or depression or anything in the mental health world that, good or bad, just being able to kind of have a relationship with the voice in your head and kind of just live a more present existence. So this album kind of is that journey, the ups and the downs of kind of confronting a lot of maybe some of the darkness, and then finding that the presence of mind and the living in the now and just being very content and aware can offer some of that light.
See, I think one of the things that's interesting hearing you guys talk about it, and it reminds me of some of the stuff I've written. Sometimes you write the songs, and after the album's together, you don't really realize what it all is until it's done. Like, all the stuff comes at you. You write the music, you come up with the title, and then it almost feels like sometimes you don't have the concept in mind right at that moment, but it feels right because it's all your life experience that you're writing about.
For sure.
And then all of a sudden later, you're like, of course.
Yeah.
You know, what was I thinking? You know, why didn't I have this in my head before? But you can't, because songwriting is an odd thing. You're plucking all the stuff out of the air.
Yeah.
And on a previous podcast, I think I talked to somebody and I equated to a painting, and a painter starting to paint, and you really don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're painting a room. You know, this wall's going to be this color and this wall's going to be this color, but when you're doing music, even when you guys describe the songwriting process, you have one vision in your head. Ben comes along, you throw it over to him. He's got a whole nother thing that he adds to it, and you're like, oh man, I didn't even hear this. And then boom, then you've got this final piece, you know, and you're like, that's the way it was supposed to sound.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So you guys with your music, it's got described as art pop meets psychedelic rock.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that's an apt way to describe it?
It's better than anything we could have come up with.
That's one way. Yeah. It's probably, you know, you could throw in some more words.
I think it's concise enough to get it across.
Yeah.
I think it gives you enough, if you say that, and we didn't coin that, but we'll definitely use it. But it gives you enough of an idea of maybe what it sounds like, but it's also enough vagueness to not like bottleneck us or pigeonhole us into one category.
Right.
Because that is one thing that we do pride ourselves on, is that not only do we have, you know, a variety of tastes and styles that we enjoy listening to, but we don't really adhere to any genre. Like, you know, we're just writing what feels good, what sounds cool. And so, maybe that borrows from hip hop, maybe that borrows from jazz, maybe that borrows from rock. Yeah. Maybe we need to make something and we're feeling like it's real catchy and we want something to be poppy, and like whatever it is, like we're not going to like judge the style or judge the song based on some style. Like, oh, that's not our style, we shouldn't do that. It's like, we'll do whatever. Like, who knows? Who knows what maybe we'll do a polka album next. You never know. I would say probably not, but you never. We won't. But maybe I'll learn the accordion.
And it's a weird thing. Like you're saying, that is what happens. But also, like, there is. With that said,
we do have a style.
It does have to kind of filter into.
It does filter through.
We figure out how to make it kind of, just fit the vibe.
Yeah, we can't help but sound like us.
Right.
Whatever we do.
It's going to come out.
But I think, that's just because of our intent and, our conceptual thinking is it's gonna fit in because it's coming out for the same reasons around the same time. I mean,
unless you guys decided to go totally left field, and bring in whatever, you do a country pop hit.
Yeah.
They might be like, that doesn't really sound like it's
Ween's country album, like, I don't know, which is great, but
it doesn't sound like it fits the Wormholes sound. Yeah. That's always a possibility.
Nothing in the writing process, although things differ, they don't really seem to like come out of left field. They seem to happen for a reason that makes sense. It's like,
And there are some things that maybe, won't make it because they were out of left field. But that's because we, either it was just something silly or just something that hasn't found its place. But it doesn't mean it won't find a place later. So you never know. Like I said, you never know where an idea comes from. But most of our stuff is definitely, it has a purpose. It has an intent.
Can we check out another track?
Yeah.
Can we check out Dying Business?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Here's Dying Business by the Wormholes.
Just a policy holder, my social insecurity. I'm a row of numbers, the devil deep sea between.
Another fantastic track, guys. You know what I love about this track? There is, if you watch Marvel movies, there's a secret ending at the end of the song. Yes. I love it that you've got this thing. It's like the song's done, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's an ending, and you're like, what? What is that?
That's funny you bring that up too, because we were just before the song talking about things coming out of left field or things maybe not surfacing because they were silly. That was one of those moments in the studio.
But even then, when that came to, is it going to make the cut or not? It made the cut for a very specific reason.
That's true. It's not just in there to be in there. It's in there first and foremost, I think initially is because it made us laugh.
Yeah.
It's just left over on a take. Yeah. It's there. It ended up on the tail end of one of the preview bounces that we kicked out, and it was funny. And but really putting this album together and thinking like Dying Business, while it's the whole album, we like to think there's a lot of beauty in it. Yeah. It's a dark song. Conceptually, it's a bit heavy. It's definitely a little bit on the somber side. It's a little slower. So it's this moment. It's in the, in the middle of the album where like, we're telling you something, at least from our perspective, that, hey, this is kind of heavy. Right. We're all impermanent. We're all, organic beings, and this life as we know it won't be anymore. But while that may be true, you don't have to be too serious about it. Here's a little, here's like, everything's cool. Here's a moment of brevity. Here's a moment of humor. And so we really did feel like, A, it's fun, it's silly, it makes us laugh, but B, like, it's a perfect just breath right in the middle to say like, hey, like, we're okay. We're all okay.
Here's the thing that I really appreciate about it. It harkens back to the 60s and the 70s when people would do recordings and they'd leave stuff in. Conversations happening before, at the end, or little mistakes in the middle. And in the world we live in with audio recording, you could have just, no, we're going to take this out. We're going to do this. We're just going to make it perfect and this, which is we live in an age of perfection in our music recording. There can't be any problems.
Pristine.
Yeah. And to hear that on there, I got through the whole thing and I was like, all right. And then that happened and I just laughed and I was like, that is just awesome. Yeah. So if you're listening, it's not played, I didn't play it. So you have to go listen to the track now and just to hear the secret ending.
Yeah. Well, there's that one's definitely exposed because it happens at the end of a song in a gap. But there's a lot of those moments on the album where there's little quirks, little maybe slight mistakes or noises or things that we left in. We would make noises or textures that we didn't have an intention, and then we cut them and bring them in for moments. Right. So, and like there's some things
more organic things because we learned from just over the year, putting out Cosmic Propaganda and how to perform these tracks and how to amalgamate the electronic and rock music, using electronic beats that are playing to a perfect click track. Yeah. It's challenged to make the music still like bend and sway and flow and sound organic and not sound like a computer.
Right.
So we really made it a point to truly blend those and have an organic feel while still being able to do what we're doing,
Yeah. I mean, in fact, to that point, like, talk about embracing mistakes, while like I am, like for drums, for example, I am recording to a click for the drums and the tempo of the song, but I'm not always on it. And I don't go back and quantize my drums. In fact, I'll go in and slice edit some other, like maybe a synth line or something to actually match my mistake in
mess
drums.
Up the synth line to make it fit the
if
drums
the drum's
that
a little off,
on.
I'll move the downbeat to hit on the off. I'm not really interested in correcting the performance to be so rigid. Yeah. I'd rather take that mistake or not even necessarily a mistake, but just take that slight off feel and
so it sounds more human.
Pair the song to it because that is human. And this album is about being human, even though we're making electronic music. Yeah. So it's very important to us to not, yes, we embrace the robots, our future overlords, and we use them to make our music, but we are absolutely putting a human stamp on it and embracing mistakes or happy accidents, if you will.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. One of the things I really love about you guys, well, the music is great, but is the artwork. Like, go into the Wormholes website, and if you're listening, go to the website, just listen to the music, but check out some of the artwork. You guys have some fantastic stuff up there.
Thank you.
Who's doing all the artwork? How does that work?
So I'm doing most of it.
Okay.
I can't take credit for some of the amazing work that Arthur Brothers has done for us recently for the new album. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my artwork, my artistic output is equally music and art. Okay. So it's all happening in my head at once. They both influence each other. My art can influence what I write about for a song and vice versa. I like to think like visually I'm making similar sounds as our music, and vice versa. And I think that's why it fits so well with our, what we have going on. And we try to make, with our limited capabilities and budget, our live performances have an aesthetic, whatever we're doing, at that time.
Well, that's one thing
we really enjoy like taking that into consideration too, not just what music are we performing that night. It's like, what's it going to look like too?
Well, that's one thing I really appreciate just talking to you guys before we started recording is you guys truly are the definition. If I looked in the dictionary under DIY musicians, it would probably be you guys doing all the music and stuff yourself. You've got the graphic design, and then we talked about the videos that you guys have, and that brought in Chris's background. So Ben's got this graphic design background to do the artwork, which is just spectacular, and then doing the videos. Chris has got a background in film. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just. I was blown away just talking to you guys about it. That wow, how much you guys did. You didn't just be like, yeah, we're going to hire somebody on Fiverr to do this, and we're going to hire some guy to do the video for us. It's you guys are truly involved in it all.
Yeah. And it's really, like I said, like I'm sure the video work is the same for him when it comes to conceptualizing for the Wormholes. It's it's all in the same headspace, happening at the same time, and it's really just another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, music's kind of our vehicle of delivery, but it's so much more than that. Like we really, that's when we come back to that, the genre name of art pop and psychedelic rock. The art in that is extremely important.
Yeah.
And that is not, it's not art as in like, a very specific style. It's art as a concept. It's like any creative delivery we can get across, whether it's vision or sound or a logo or a music video or a show flyer or whatever it is, it does filter through the Wormholes like universe.
It's great.
But I mean that's really what it is. So it's all getting across the same concept, which is kind of what we bring to it as creatives. It all gets filtered through that. And so however it reaches you, it doesn't really matter to us because we have the same intent for all of it.
Right.
And it all kind of is little pieces of the same overarching puzzle.
And it's interesting to me. It just, I mean, just somebody on the outside looking in, it feels like it fits. Like I hear the music and then I see the artwork and then I watch the videos and I'm like, wow, this all just seems to fit together really well.
That's nice to hear.
It doesn't say,
it works.
I don't get the feel that like the art doesn't match the songs. And I don't get the feeling that the videos don't match the songs because that can happen. Mm-hmm. It might not work.
Yeah, sure.
But it all seems to kind of gel really well together for you guys. And that might go back to you guys being a duo and, having these wonderful creative minds that you can kind of talk to each other and filter it out and not have to have another person come in and give you their vision of what you're supposed to be doing.
Sure. I mean, definitely not just having two minds working without having to have external perspectives definitely helps with getting an idea across. But the other thing too is like us just having each other, like it's that one little extra layer of quality control.
Yeah.
It's like, I may have something that I want to, post about or a picture or vice versa, or he's got a piece of art, but before it goes public, we'll just kick it back and forth. And so there may be a little changing in the wording of the post or like a little visual treatment to a photo, but like that one extra layer of input is extremely beneficial. So, cause if this were my solo project or his solo project, it wouldn't quite look or sound or feel the same.
Right.
And I chalk it up, I guess, to luck. I don't know. Like we're very lucky to be able to have each other as creative resources.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't ever gloss over that fact. Yeah. We're extremely lucky to have this dynamic for whatever reason.
I would venture to say that if you guys at some point did something else, and called it another project and you work with, let's say, two other musicians, it wouldn't sound the same. Even though you two there, throwing in somebody else's ideas into the mix would kind of change everything.
Yeah.
I really think, so Wow, guys, fantastic. I'm just super impressed just sitting there and talking to you guys and finding out all that you guys are doing. This podcast episode will probably be dropping in December. So looking ahead, you guys are headed out on tour. You got a lot going on.
Yep.
You're touring. Curiosity, are you touring just regionally? Where are you guys touring?
We're touring up and down the East Coast. So from here to Maine and back.
Wow.
So yeah, December time will be, we'll be in Burlington, Vermont in December. We'll be in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We'll be in Brooklyn, New York. We'll be in Washington, D.C., and we'll be in Richmond, Virginia. I think that's the December shows for that first couple weeks in December.
Awesome. How can we get in touch with you guys as we start wrapping things up?
So our website is wearethewormholes.com, and then our social handle is at wearethewormholes. So that's the best way to get it.
Is that everywhere? Instagram?
Yeah,
and
Instagram, Facebook, and then all our music. No, not
Just getting it on
MySpace.
MySpace.
maybe we'll make a comeback.
Ooh, that's a long time ago.
And all our music's on the streaming services, so you can get it through the website. We'll lead you everywhere, but Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon, all that jazz. It's all out there.
Awesome. Well, Ben, Chris, thanks so much for coming in, man. It's been a real pleasure talking to you guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
All right, guys, have an awesome day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the 51st episode of the Queen City Music Podcast, and I hope you'll go back and enjoy past episodes. You can find the QCMP on your favorite streaming platforms. As always, if you have an idea for an episode or would like to be a guest on the QCMP, reach out to me at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out our local partners, Records on the Wall at rexonthewall.com, Reporting from 20XX at reportingfrom20xx.wordpress.com, and Queen City Live at instagram.com/Queen City Live Music. I hope you all have a safe and enjoyable holiday season, and here's to a wonderful 2022.